Before you start recording, I have to jump out of the meeting.
And Debbie, would you be willing to throw the agenda up for me? I don't have one handy.
I've got it ready.
So I could probably dig it out of my email, but
No,
buried in old stuff like that.
is the agenda showing or is it?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
What are we at? 5:29.
Yeah, we are, Jim Woodward. Yes, Stephen.
Do we have any visitors at the moment? I can't tell from my display.
No, we do not.
I think we're at that point where we can get going if you guys are ready. So why don't we start with roll call? Debbie, did you start recording?
I have.
Okay. Why
Okay,
don't we start with roll call then?
all right. Chair Mark Husbands,
Here.
Vice Chair Christine Adams,
Present?
Monica Johnson,
Present.
Karen Miller,
Present.
Kate Truesdale,
Present.
Jim Woodward,
Here.
Stephen Young,
Here.
Gary Manfrey.
Present.
We have Council Member John Stone,
Present.
and staff, we have Christina Underhill, Director, Dave Lee, Manager of Open Space,
Present.
and Allison Boyd, Recreation Manager. Did I miss anyone? All right, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, that leads us to the minutes for December 10th. And I was not present on December 10th, but does anyone have any corrections or comments if they were at the meeting?
No, I'll move the minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
Thank you.
Minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay, so does that lead us to straight into old business? Let's see.
New business.
Let's talk about park ranger position.
Okay. Yes, everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We have a new candidate, not candidate, we have a new employee. Her name is Alyssa. It's either Haddon or Hayden. She passed the background test with the police department, and Chief Collins extended a job offer to her earlier this month. And she starts on February 1st with a swearing in ceremony. And I don't have any more of the application and things, but I believe she came from the city of Centennial. And that's all I've got on that.
Well, that's great, Dave. I think that's represents a real step forward in a number of ways. And I know we've talked about it. It comes up every time we have a dog discussion, but I don't think it's just limited to helping out with the dog issue. I think it'll help out to have a park presence just across the board for all the issues that come up with parks and park uses. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Dave, I have a question. Is the park ranger, they're splitting their time with code? So they're both?
No, they work directly for Dave Lewis in the code enforcement department division, but they're going to be working, she's going to be working a lot with me to understand the parks and the issues and everything else, but she will be directly supervised by Dave Lewis.
So in the parks then?
Requirement in part because of the law enforcement aspect of the job, right?
Correct. Yes, but her sole duty responsibility is to patrol the parks and deal with issues related to the parks.
Okay, great.
That's great. Any other questions for Dave or comments about this park ranger position being filled?
No, I think it's great. I'm really excited about it. And I think it's totally appropriate for it to be under Dave Lewis, especially given like the peace officer status that they have.
Okay. Well, thanks for the update then, Dave. And unless we have any other questions or comments, then we can move on to furlough day and closed facilities.
Yeah, so the city has selected February 12th as the first furlough day, and it will impact all of our recreation facilities. They will be closed on February 12th. And the hope is we only have one furlough day. We're hoping that the revenue projections are correct and we won't need additional furlough days through the year. But the plan right now is to do one per quarter versus do them all at the front. So, staff don't necessarily have to furlough 4 days if it's not necessary. So Broken T will be closed. Malley, the recreation center and the library will all be closed for access. We are though working through a few different situations with classes that are offered on Fridays, and some of our instructors, it may not make sense to furlough them because they're cost recovery. And it may actually cost us more money to cancel classes and have to give refunds for that Friday we're furloughing. So we're working through some of those details, and we'll be sure to communicate to those individuals that may be impacted by classes being offered on the furlough day. So, but for overall, furlough day is February 12th. It's a Friday, and our facilities will be closed for access. Any questions?
Hopefully the upcoming year or two will improve things in terms of budget.
Hopefully, yes.
Well, would you like to keep going with COVID status?
I will. So COVID status currently for the county, we're in orange level, which is 25% capacity. So the rec center, Malley, they're impacted by this. It's better than being in red level. Allison is on the call, I believe still, but she is working on the 5-star program that if we are successful in receiving the 5-star status, we will move to a level on the dial that's lower than where we're currently at. So if we move back to red, because we're part of the 5-star program, we would stay in orange status. If we're in orange, we'll drop to a yellow, so we can have the facility opened for more people if we meet the criteria of this program. And some of the qualifications to be 5-star, and you'll see some restaurants and other gyms that have applied and have been successful. They're part of the 5-star program. They're having to meet all these requirements. So it's technically a safer facility to be in, but masks are mandatory. They're currently mandatory now. You have to require 6-foot distancing, regular sanitation of high touch point surfaces. We're doing this now across the city, but all employees have to monitor and report symptoms, temperature checks, so forth. You have to have a reservation to come work out at the facility, which we're already doing. So some of these things were already in place. They have to be inspected. So Allison is actually one of the inspectors of the 5-star program. She would not be the inspector for our facilities. We get somebody from the outside to come in and inspect our facilities. But there's a bunch of different criteria like ventilation improvements, HVAC improvements, which we have in place currently. We're working on that. Being able to notify customers that maybe have been exposed to COVID. So there has to be a program in place. So if an individual comes into one of our facilities and finds out the next day or later that day or later that week that they have COVID, we have to have a system in place to notify anybody they may have exposed. And they have to have displays of the ways to reach out to Tri-County Health for complaints. if there are complaints. There's a lot of different criteria in place. I think it's a good program. It's a little too bad. It's a little late in the game now, where now, you know, people are getting vaccines. But at least something's in place so we can open our facilities further for use, to hopefully get people into them and working out and living healthier lifestyles. So are there any questions regarding our COVID status and the 5-star program?
I don't think it's too late in the game. We don't know how vaccines are going to roll out. And, you know, I work at a school that's worked really hard to stay open and have in-person learning. And it's worth every precaution you can take. It's saving lives. So I applaud the effort.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's great they have a program like this. I just wish it would have been rolled out like last summer or fall. But hey, it's in place now. We're going to go for it and see what we can do.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go for it.
So when we do move through these levels, the orange and the red and the yellow, we're pretty good at establishing what is allowed during that time. So we're able to say, this is what we're going to offer in orange level. This is what we're going to be able to do in yellow level. And this is what we can do in red level. So it's pretty seamless with staff and with our, any materials that we want to get out to the public, so that we know quickly what we're going to be doing, instead of, oh, what are we going to offer now? What are we going to do? So we've pretty much hit those standards since June, you know, with what we're going to offer, with what restrictions we have. So it's been pretty successful. That's all.
Kudos to all of you for all that you've done. I mean, I know what goes into that, and for the Denver Parks and Rec perspective, we haven't opened up any of our rec centers for recreation. And this is such a huge lift, but it's so important to the community and the health of our community. And I know what's gone into it. So I'm just so grateful that you all have taken this so seriously. And I mean, my sister, I'm a little bit of a special case, but my sister still uses the rec center quite a bit. And like, I have never heard of any instance where we had to shut it down because we found a case. And I think that's
Right.
testament to all the work that you all have been doing. So my hat's off to you on this. I'm really, really impressed. And I'm so happy that we're able to keep our employees employed and our citizens engaged in Inglewood at this time.
Thank you.
A question about the rec center. Is that, can you do partial 5-star for in the facility? For example, the pool certainly could hold, I mean, you could, I would think, meet those standards a whole lot easier than the exercise area or the weight room or something like that. So is it possible to do partial parts of the facility?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
So, and we actually next Thursday we'll start adding 2 people per lane in the pools, and so that'll alleviate some of any of our wait list kind of things. Best practice right now, that's what people are doing around us. Of course, South Suburban's been doing it since the beginning. They do whatever they want, but most pools are moving to that, where they're allowing 2 people. If you have to rest, you rest at an opposite end and that kind of thing. So that will start next Thursday. And mainly because we already have people that are signed up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and we don't want to surprise them with, hey, somebody's in your lane. So like Christine said, a lot of thought goes into those rules because everybody's a little bit on edge. But yeah, there's a capacity that we have to watch, and as you know, Jim, so it's one facility, not separate.
Okay.
Any other questions about 5-star status, facilities opening, COVID status, things in that vein? Okay, if not, then we can discuss ongoing business, including the off-leash dog survey that has been in the works for a little while here.
Yeah, so the survey, the postcards were sent out last week, I believe. We have had 264 people to date complete the survey, which I'm extremely excited about. 400 people's 400 completed surveys is our target to keep it statistically valid with the error of margin that the National Research Center is looking for. So we're halfway there. The more we get, the better. A reminder postcard will be sent out to those 5,000 homes that already received the first postcard to let them know, hey, don't forget to fill this out. I know myself and Debbie have been receiving calls, questions about the survey for those who have received it. So we know they're out there. Did anybody on the commission receive one? I'm just curious. No? Bummer. I was hoping somebody would.
I had a
No, me
neighbor
too.
actually get it, and they also mentioned that they saw the, I guess there was an advertisement on Nextdoor that kind of said, hey, look out for this, it's coming. So I know it made it out, but I unfortunately didn't get one.
Okay, good.
I did
Yeah.
receive it.
Oh, good, Jim.
I haven't
Hopefully
filled
you
it
fill
out yet,
Okay.
but I will. I will tomorrow.
Perfect. You have till February 10th to fill it out. So there's still plenty of time here. And once February 10th hits, the statistically valid, the random sample survey that went out to those 5,000 homes will be closed. And then they will reopen it for anyone to participate in Inglewood. You do have to register through POLCO. We're trying to do that to weed out people doing it multiple times. And the surveys will be presented separately to not only you all, but to the council. So it's not going to be combined together. We want to keep the statistically valid ones separate. So right now it's off to a great start. We're excited to get the results and see where it's going. I've been able to peek a little bit and see where it's headed, and it's very interesting. It's kind of right down the middle. So the next 200 people to respond will hopefully split it better, and we'll have easier way to make a decision on the off-leash program versus just staying down the middle like it kind of has been for many years now. So that's where we're at on the survey. It's up and running.
And Christina, this may be a question that you can't answer. That's really a question for the survey designers. But do you know what they did in terms of collecting demographic type information to be able to examine the respondents against the target population to ensure that there's not some kind of bias in terms of the folks that do complete the survey versus those that don't? Because I mean, we're, as surveys go these days, the response rate will be, I mean, I don't know if they're expecting something like 20% or 30% would be like really good.
Yeah.
So pattern that gets introduced in that response, and it can be a little funny. That's one question I have.
So let me know if I'm off track on how I answer this, but so everybody that received the postcard got an access code that geocodes them. So we know the area that the person is responding from, and it allows for a non-duplicate survey to be submitted. Once that access code is submitted, you can't duplicate that. So it's keeping the responses separate. When it comes to the open survey, anybody can fill it out. We will be asking some demographic information to at least show zip codes and where they're coming from. So again, it's that open survey. Somebody could lie and say they're from Inglewood and they're really not. The hope is people will be honest and answer where they're coming from. It'd be nice to know, if Denver residents, Littleton residents are responding as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I think it's interesting to have these two different kind of processes that are going on at the same time. I mean, what will be interesting? I mean, I think there's a bit of a public communication element to this because, the one survey, assuming that they get a successful random sample, then, is a scientific survey and is a piece of research about the Inglewood population and their attitudes about these dog questions. The other thing is kind of, I mean, it's like more of an outreach thing, right? But if the responses look really different in that second open survey than the scientific survey, then someone's going to need to explain that is probably because the one is providing representative information and the other is providing biased information that represents, opportunistic responses by interested individuals in the public. you know, I mean, I think there's a lot of confusion about the difference between, you know, kind of doing survey research and doing civic engagement, and the sort of opportunity to have your voice heard, you know, and that survey is not really an opportunity to quote, have your voice heard. It's an opportunity for this research group to, you know, characterize the attitudes that prevail in the public and provide some data around the frequency of those attitudes. So I've always worried a little bit about that second thing. Now, if the responses look really similar and they've got some other things to align to show that the respondent population from the opportunistic survey and the scientific survey are very similar, well, then you could argue that it might, you know, that the opportunistic survey is additional data. It might be an opportunity even to do some analysis of attitudes of subgroups where, you know, which is all depends on whether you have enough respondents to, you know, have a large enough subgroup to do a statistical analysis. But anyway, I think there's some technical questions about what we're going to get and how we're going to communicate to the public. You know, I know those things came up in some of our dog meetings, and I think we're going to get asked again about the nature of those things and how they fit together.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Mark, how far they're going to go when we had the long conversation on the statistical analysis of how this is going to be interpreted. I don't know who's going to draw the line, but I'm hoping there's one laid out before we get buried into 3 hours of discussion of how to remove 1 or 2 outliers from a 400, you know, entry database or something.
Yeah, that will be the challenge going forward. And that's why we hired a company to do this. And that's all they do is these surveys, both open and statistically valid. And so they ensure me that they can separate the two and do their analysis and show the differences if there are any. Right now it's an X factor. We don't know if it's going to be biased or not, and how people will respond. So I'm very anxious to see both surveys and if they align or not. And then how do we analyze that if they're completely off base? You know, if the random sample goes one direction and the open survey goes completely another direction, we won't know that till we have it. But the NRC POLCO group said they can help us analyze that and review it. So my goal is to bring POLCO to you and have them present the data they'll be presenting to council. So you can ask these questions of them come April before we present to council.
You know, I had a question on some of the demographic questions. I don't understand why 26 through 30 are even relevant, having to do with your income. Are you Spanish or Hispanic or Latino?
Jim, are you
Your age?
Those are questions you're getting from the actual.
Those are questions on the survey. They're at the end. I guess they're standard questions that NRC collects.
Jim, those are exactly the kind of things they need in order to be able to figure out whether the respondents to that card or survey that you received look like the 5,000 person target population that they're trying to get, a representative sample of the Englewood.
Okay.
So those questions can be answered for Englewood as a whole. And they're, you know, by randomly sampling households, they're trying to make it, you know, representative, but they ask those questions not because they're relevant answers to the dog question, but in order, I believe, to be able to tell that they didn't get primarily, for example, they didn't get mainly affluent respondents. They didn't get respondents that were biased towards a particular race or ethnicity. And so that stuff's pretty standard, just so that they can make sure that respondent group, the people out of the 5,000 to get the survey, the people that actually complete it are indeed a random sample of Englewood citizens.
Okay.
I never saw the survey, so I'm actually glad they're asking those questions, even though they seem odd, but they have a purpose for.
You know, well, yeah, and I haven't looked online at the actual questionnaire, but I assume it's the same one that Debbie sent to us all, or maybe it was Christina, whoever sent it.
It's changed slightly, but not much. And some additional questions were added, such as the demographic information that we may not have sent out, but it was something that NRC was going to add to it for exactly what Mark said. It helps us figure out where these, if they're legit and coming from Inglewood, and how they lay out as a response.
Yeah. And NRC is somebody that is very experienced at doing this and has been doing it with for many, many years before I was ever on council, and all the way through that. We'd do that almost annually, or at least every couple of years with them. And most cities within the state of Colorado utilize them also. So
yeah, across the nation, I used them in Arizona for quite a few different surveys we needed good information on. So
yeah, they're really
they know what they're
legitimate.
doing.
If I may, if that's okay, Mark, I'm super appreciative of these surveys because I think it'll give us a lot of really great data, but hopefully, I'm quite sure that once this gets to council, they probably will likely want more community engagement. I know that's something that I certainly advocate for is, survey results are great and statistically helpful and measurable, all of those things that are good and great, but sometimes it's helpful just to have that human interaction. And I know that we've talked about doing that, and then COVID hit. And so it really put a damper on what we could do and couldn't do. And I know Dave Lewis is very interested in doing that as well. So I want to keep that in mind, that I love all the surveying that we're doing and the data that we're getting just to support whatever recommendations we're making. But ultimately, I also think that community engagement, and in a more personal way, and maybe a less non-traditional, we're going to be here from 5 to 6 at the school gym, coming to the dog parks, whatever it is, I think will also be really important in gathering some other information. But so it was kind of going back to your earlier point, Mark, but with the statistical surveys and stuff, but I think that community engagement is really important. And I would be surprised if city council wasn't going to require that of us at some point as well.
The nice part about that is our park ranger will be in full force by the time the survey results are out. She's going to have to go through, I think, 6 weeks of training or something. And so, yeah, it could be very easy to get some more information, just having her on the ground and talking to people. And that's informal, but people can share, and it can happen throughout the day and weeks to find out what people's appetite is.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I mean, have you thought about arranging something like a Meet the Ranger kind of a opportunity or two as part of the rollout?
I think it's a great idea. We haven't talked to that degree yet with Dave Lewis and code enforcement, but I think that's an awesome idea to meet your ranger, and she'll be at different parks throughout the weeks when she's trained and ready to go. So yeah, good idea.
I think that's a great idea. That was something that I, during COVID, saw as a huge opportunity. Is we have people using our parks for the first time or in different ways. And it's a prime opportunity to engage those voices that you would never hear from otherwise, who are never going to fill out the survey, who are never going to come to a public meeting, but they're actually using their parks. And so I love that idea, Mark, of utilizing our ranger and perhaps staff in some way, just to solicit some of that feedback, because I think that's where most of your honesty comes from, is those like informal, honest forms of communication with folks. So that's a great idea. Thanks for saying that, Mark. I would have never thought about that.
I think also featuring her on the web page would be important.
Totally, if she's comfortable. She better be, she's a ranger, but you never know.
Well, does anyone else have any questions about the off-leash survey then? I'm very pleased it's happening. It's going to be helpful. If not, we can talk about the bid schedule for park projects.
All right, perfect. So Dave will probably chime in here too, but we have an updated schedule for the $2.3 million going out to bid for 3 parks to be renovated and 3 irrigation systems to be renovated. And so the bid's going to be posted next week on the 19th. I think that's next week. And we will have a mandatory pre-bid meeting on the 26th of January. And the bids will be due on February 16th. So they have, just about a month to put in bids for this. It's an invitation to bid. So we'll see what the cost comes in at for the projects we'd like to complete and the amenities we want to get upgraded. We'll keep you all updated. It'll probably be the March meeting when you'll hear what the bids were, because I think that's after our February meeting. But so we're excited to start talking to some of these contractors and designers to find out what we can afford to do. Dave, do you have anything to add?
The only other thing that I would have to add, Christina, I'd like to also take a look at the golf course back 9 irrigation system. There may be an economy of scale at that point in getting that done. But that's a conversation I think that we probably need to have either at the mandatory pre-bid or with the successful bidder at that point.
So any questions regarding that? Again, 3 parks, 3 irrigation systems, maybe the golf course will be added in there as well. And it's a total of $3 million we received from the unassigned balance, but about $700,000 is going to go to the little Dry Creek renovation in that project. And that's a separate project. So it won't be part of this bid that's being released on the 19th.
Anybody?
Everybody's very excited. I'm thrilled too.
Good project. All good projects. Okay, well then if there's no questions or comments about those park projects, then we can move to staff's choice.
I have one item and I think Dave has 2. So I'll go first to knock it out. Just to let you know, council voted at their last meeting to continue doing virtual for the next month. They'll bring it back up in February. We had our library board meeting on Tuesday of this week, and the library board asked, can we stay virtual? They really enjoyed being able to participate in this manner, and we had really great attendance, as we have for most of our boards and commission meetings. They asked if they could do virtual and then maybe once a quarter meet in person. You don't have to make any decisions, just putting it out there. If you guys like this format, it could be an option down the road. Will you actually have to put the proposal if you want to stay virtual or do a hybrid type meeting through Councilmember Stone, then he would take it to City Council. So just putting it out there, no decisions need to be made tonight, but it's quite possible in-person meetings may return in the next quarter or 2, and then we can make that decision on how you all want to proceed.
At least for the summer months.
Yeah.
We need to visit a few parks.
Yes, we do. We can have an outdoor meeting. How about that'd be great. Love that.
And I think doing outdoor meetings may not even rise to the level of needing an approval as well, if it's properly socially distanced and whatnot.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I had, Dave. All you.
Okay. A couple of things. I wanted to inform the commission regarding Jason Park. We have some concerns right now about the condition of the turf. As we all know, we've had a very dry, sustained wintertime with obviously a lot of heavy traffic and park use throughout the summer, and that's continued into the fall as well as into the winter. And just like a few years ago, and I don't remember, it was 2017 or 2018 when we had to close that park and then refurbish the turf. I foresee that happening again this spring. I've let Lindsay know already so that she can start thinking about moving games and field reservations off of that athletic field back there. So really that's what I wanted to talk about. We probably also want to think about having an educational period. And I'm going to look at making up some temporary signs and asking people to curtail their activities or at least limit them at Jason Park and possibly go someplace else, just so there's an educational period. But then probably by March or maybe even February, depending on the continuation of the turf damage, we may have to close it and fence it. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Well, I mean, I do. You know, what I recall last time is that, you know, for good reason, you all tried some fairly soft initial measures to get people to, you know, use that turf yet less, and your signs disappeared, and you know it did, you know, the use didn't decrease, and so I mean it sounds like you're a little more committed to going ahead and moving forward with a harder closure. I mean, I guess my question is, are we going to do that all over again? Because I don't think it's going to be different, right? We're gonna the soft methods just are limited in terms of how we can protect that area without fencing.
Well, I certainly don't disagree with you, but I think the word needs to get out. I don't want people stopping by one day and having 6-foot chain link fence out there. So whatever we do, want to start with a softer approach, you know, the website, social media, all of that, and ask people. But if this continues the way it has been, in February is probably going to be another very dry month. Usually December, January, and February are the 3 driest months of the year. I can't see that, you know, the weather's going to change or the circumstances are going to change out there. But I do want to start off with a little bit of a soft approach.
Well, Dave, couldn't we just put up signs that basically said the park will be closed for off-leash purposes and stuff from, you know, February 10th to whatever, I mean, whatever you decide. And then, I mean, so people are aware of it and why they're aware of it on the websites and stuff. And I think that'll be good for the park ranger to be out there and be able to, you know, meet with people and let them know too why. And they'll understand, I'm sure, if they look at it.
I think that's a very good idea, Jim, and I'll take that into consideration. I don't believe Elisa will be available. As Christina said, there's about 6 weeks of training that she needs to do. So I think the earliest she's going to be around is sometime in March. But I could be wrong. I don't know for sure.
But Jason is, you know, on a 60-degree day or 55, 60 degree, go over there at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock and take a look. It's incredible. I mean, people are enjoying themselves, and certainly dogs are enjoying themselves, but it's a lot of them. It's more than I've ever seen over the years.
That's just heavy use because of the pandemic. I was out there today right around the noon hour, and there were probably 5 or so people out there, and I don't know how many dogs they had, at least 5, and that's in the wind.
Yeah. 4 o'clock is when it seems like a lot of people are off work and people are showing up and stuff.
Before it gets
They're
dark.
all over all the fields. And
Any other questions? I'll go on to my next topic here, and that's involving the golf course. We have a couple of programs going on in the next week, and the first one is National Hat Day, which is tomorrow. And the golf course is offering a 21% discount off the purchase of all hats. And then on the 19th of January, that's National Popcorn Day. Who knew? So each player is going to receive a complimentary bag of popcorn on National Popcorn Day. And then on January 26th, that is National Spouse Day. So we are asking people to bring their partner to play the par 3 for a 2-for-1 pricing. So those are our 3 events. And then February 1st, the golf course takes its transition from the G1 Golf Now reservation program to back to Rec Track, which we had previously. This is in anticipation of moving away from Billy Casper Golf. And we're just going back to Rec Track. Our communications department will take over the marketing and the Facebook page for the golf course immediately here on out. And so Billy Casper's involvement will be reduced until their annual contract ends, which I believe is in February. And I'll take any questions if there are any.
I actually had a question, Dave. Is there a publication that we publish or send out that kind of labels the specials or the national holidays, or is that something that we can point people to, or is it just kind of random?
It's on the golf webpage.
Oh, it's on there? Okay.
Yep, will be announced there, or is already up. That's part of Billy Casper's responsibility currently, is to design those things and put them out on the golf webpage. From here on out, our communications department will be doing that and assisting with those things.
Okay, Dave, any other questions for Dave? Or Dave, do you have any other items?
That's all I have.
Allison, do you have anything you'd like to share?
That might have been a no.
Sorry, I'm having a little technical
Yeah, just trying to
difficulty.
find her mute button. I know.
No, we're getting some programs going. Hopefully in the spring here. We're still holding off on doing any kind of trips and tours and things like that put people in close quarters, but we're planning on doing the annual art show. And then I will mention that Tuesday night at the council meeting, the Agency on Aging from Dr. Cog, there's a presentation on seniors, basically. Pretty interesting information, and we're going to try and co-op with them, which we already have been doing with programs and things. We are working on our new Buzz Center at the Maui Recreation Center, so it's a resource for those active agers over 55. Working on that now, getting the room ready and things like that. So I'll have some more updates for you, hopefully next month. Thank you.
Real quick, Allison, do you want to talk about the pass sale that you have too, just so everybody's aware that you've extended it?
Sure. Yeah, we have every year we have a 25 punch pass sale where you buy 25 punches, you get 5 for free. And since this is really a weird year, we decided to extend it because we're about half of what we normally sell with those passes. It's usually $25,000 to $30,000, and we're maybe about 15,000, I think. So hopefully doing it for another month will help us out a little bit. We have been selling some annual passes and our premier passes. It's really tough to sell a premier pass because that includes classes. So it's hard when you're not doing a lot of classes, and a lot of them are virtual. We still have instructors that don't want to come back. So the ones that do, we are doing classes, and swim classes are pretty popular as well. So we're just struggling against that. But the pass sale, we'll do another one in July, and we might extend that one as well. So just gives people an extra 5 drop-ins.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for staying creative and finding ways to adapt to all these programs moving so that they can, they can emerge maybe at the end of the tunnel. And
Yeah, you have no idea.
yeah, I'm sure it's plenty of anxiety around the, the state of things when you're finally able to reconstitute the programs.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think then we can move to Commissioner's Choice, and I'll run down my little Brady Bunch panel, and beginning with Christine.
I don't have anything, but thanks.
John, do you have anything for us from council or otherwise?
I don't have anything that hasn't already been alluded to. Just, we're talking about what it would look like to do hybrid meetings and, what it would look like to allow committees to decide their comfort level for going back to in-person in a hybrid format at some point in the undetermined future, because we still have to get all of the technology in place for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a kind of an interesting opportunity because we have a reason to look at doing outdoor meetings that utilize these outdoor spaces that we're talking about. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that it's often very convenient, when you're done with work, to have an online meeting, especially colder weather, rather than have to go down to City Hall. Meeting in person is great, and it's great to see everybody, but it's an interesting idea that now that we've tested this out and it's pretty successful, that it could be part of the mix, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a really powerful tool. And, what we've seen in city council is that we've actually had increased engagement from the public by making it easier to show up. When you can show up from your living room, it makes it really simple to come and speak to council and to have your voice heard. And even when we do go back to in person, I think it's crucial that we, utilize this technology that we now have access to, that we've built out and gotten used to, so that, on every level, we can have as many people engaging as possible. I mean, if you're working a night shift and you want to speak on council, you just take your break for 15 minutes.
That's
and you
right.
get to speak to council. You don't have to miss, your opportunity to speak to your representatives just because, you might have a socioeconomic situation that would otherwise prevent you. So I think this has been really cool. And I love the idea of going to the parks. Anything to get me out of the house is wonderful, especially if we can do it safely and social distance. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe when it's warmer.
Yeah. Today was pretty bitter. I don't know if
It was bad.
Okay. Well, thank you. Jim, do you have anything for us?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Karen.
I don't have anything either. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Kate, do you got anything to share with the group?
I do not, but it's good to see you guys.
And Gary, any news or updates from school board or anything like that or otherwise?
Pretty much kids are back in school as of Monday. My kids are definitely enjoying it. I'm seeing the change in their behavior coming home, and really excited to get back to school. Other than that, that's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Gary. And Steven.
I am good. I apologize if my child screams in the background, but he's freaking out on the floor.
I missed it entirely. All right, well, unless anybody else has any other comments, questions, anything else they'd like to add before we conclude, then we can call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
all.
See you
Thanks,
next time.
everybody. You have a
Have
good
a good
night.
night,
Have a good
guys.
weekend.
Have a great
Bye,
night.
everybody.